She was the first Latina to win an Oscar in 1962, making history. She tells us today, at age 93, what that one really cost her. 2,555 days without a movie part. From the shocking racism on the set to the scene that really hurt her. Moreno shows the sad truth behind the pretty front of West Side Story. Rita Moreno was born in Jumacao, Puerto Rico, on December 11, 1931. Her birth name was Rosa Dolores Alvario. Her birth was very exciting. The town of Juncos was close by and had no hospital. Her family lived on a small farm there. When Rosa Maria, her mother, went into labor, the roads were flooded from heavy rain. He rode his horse through dangerous, muddy roads for more than 4 hours to get her to the hospital. Rosa was born a few minutes after they got there, so a dangerous home birth was avoided. She grew up in the beautiful jungle of Puerto Rico, but it was hard to live on a farm. They were poor, which made her strong from a young age. A lot of people think she was an only child, but she wasn't. Diego was her younger brother. Her brother stayed behind when she and her mother went to New York. Rita wouldn't see him again for 67 years. In 2021, they finally got back together. Rosa and her mother left Puerto Rico for New York City when Rosa was 5 years old in search of a better life. The year was 1936, and the ship they were on was called the SS Carabobo. After leaving the bright colors of Puerto Rico, Rita later said the trip was like going backwards through the Wizard of Oz for the dull, gray streets of New York City. They didn't have much when they moved into a small room in Spanish Harlem. Their mother, Rita, who didn't speak English, worked long hours in a laundry to make money for them. Also, Rosa, who was young, had to deal with a tough new world. The people were rude to her, and she didn't know the language. There were times when kids called her names and even threw snowballs at her on the way to school. She was changed by these events, but they also gave her the strength to stand up for herself and others now. Even though things were hard, Rita's natural ability began to shine. Her mom saw something special in her and started taking her to try out for roles. Rita started taking dance lessons with Paco Cancino when she was 6 years old. Paco is the uncle of famous actress Rita Hayworth. Paco, a fiery Spanish dancer, saw right away what she could do. By the time she was 9, she was doing shows for money. El Chico, a bar in Greenwich Village, was where she did her first big show. Rita dressed up as a Spanish dancer and played the castanets, which captivated the crowd. She later said, "Who wouldn't love a 9-year-old dressed up as a Spanish princess?" But putting on shows in bars when she was so young let her see the bad side of show business. She went to shows by herself a lot of the time and went through things that no child should have to go through. Still, these early shows made her love being on stage even more. It was Rita's first time on Broadway when she was 13. The play was called Sky Drift. She played Angelina, the youngest sister of an Italian soldier in a play set during World War II. Even though it was only on for 7 shows, the play was a big step for Rita. She lied about her age to get the part. She was 16 years old. To make it happen, her mother even faked papers. It was hard, but it was worth it. Rita began using her stepfather's last name, Moreno, at this point. This would become her official name. The play didn't make her popular, but it did get the attention of Hollywood talent agents, which changed everything. Rita got a deal with MGM Studios, one of the biggest names in Hollywood, when she was 18. Someone who saw her act set up a meeting between her and Louis B. Mayer, who was the head of MGM. Rita put on clothes that made her look like Elizabeth Taylor, who was a famous actor in Hollywood at the time. Mayer saw her and said, "She looks like a Spanish Elizabeth Taylor." He then offered her a 7-year deal right away. There was a catch, though. The company picked out a new name for her. After seeing Rita Hayworth, they picked Rita Moreno. It was a small part in her first movie with MGM. In The Toast of New Orleans, 1950, she played a Creole girl who didn't have a name. She had to change her skin color and talk with a fake accent because she was often cast as stereotypical island girls. She was mad about it, but she didn't give up. After a year, MGM ended her deal, which could have made her give up on her hopes. Instead, it made her want to keep fighting for better parts. Rita Moreno got a small but memorable part in Singin' in the Rain in 1952, when she was only 20 years old. She played Zelda Zanders, a star of silent movies who was trying to get used to movies with sound. Even though it wasn't a big part, it stood out because she worked with famous people like Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds, and Donald O'Connor. Even cooler was the fact that Gene Kelly himself wanted her to play the part. Kelly believed in her own ability at a time when Hollywood often ignored or made fun of actresses of color. After the fact, Rita said that he never thought she was too Latina. He just thought she was right for the part. That being on such a famous set was really cool for her. She thought it was an honor to be able to see how big Hollywood movies were made. The movie was a big hit, making $7.7 million and getting nominated for an Oscar. It worked out well for Rita, but Hollywood still thought the same way about her. The fact that people still called her racial meant that she would have to deal with that for years. She did more than just movies and parts in Hollywood. It was also about getting through hard times. In her early years, she was mistreated badly and was even sexually harassed. And even attacked. She said some shocking things, like that her own agent beat her up when she was a girl. At the time, she was young and trying to find her place in the business. This touched her deeply. Besides that, she was constantly groped and was often seen as an object instead of a skilled actress. In 1954, she was on the cover of Life magazine, which said, Rita Moreno, a list of sexy and innocent actresses. She got more attention, but it also showed how the industry saw her. They were more interested in how she looked and her background than in her skills. In 1956, she got her big break when she played Tuptim in The King and I. To show that she could do more than just weird roles, this job was very important to her. The movie, which stars Yul Brynner and Deborah Kerr, was a huge hit and won 5 Oscars. She worked hard to get the part and beat out Francine Nguyen, who was also an actor. She was very moving and deep in her role as Thuptim, a young woman who was forced to be one of the king's wives. But Rita was still angry at that point. Even though she was proud of her work, she knew that Hollywood only saw her as a black actress. She saw the irony. An actress from Puerto Rico who plays a Burmese role. Rita Moreno's life changed when she got the part of Anita in West Side Story. There were not many Latina actors in Hollywood at the time, so there was a lot of competition for the part. Rita later said that every Hollywood girl with dark hair and eyes tried out. Rita had to show that she could act, sing, and dance well during the months-long process. I had the most trouble moving, since she hadn't done it for a living in years. In secret, she took weeks of different kinds of dance lessons to get ready. On top of everything else, there was still the matter of her age. Producers thought she might look too old to play a teen because she was 29 years old. Some people, like Chita Rivera, who played Anita on Broadway, were turned down because they thought she looked too grown up. But Rita got the part because she was talented and worked hard. Rita almost turned down the part before shooting began. The first words to the song America made her mad. The lines were mean to Puerto Rico, calling it an ugly island full of diseases. Rita could not sing those words because she was proud to be Puerto Rican. She told the producer she was leaving if they didn't change the words. It was risky for her to take this stand because there weren't many good parts for Latina actresses at the time. Richard Rodgers changed the lines to make them less insulting. It was one of the first times in Hollywood that an actress spoke out for cultural freedom, and it made a big difference. It wasn't easy to film. The dance practices were very hard. It was the hardest work that anyone had ever seen the group do under the direction of Jerome Robbins. For 3 months, they worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Robbins even kept the players who played the Jets and Sharks away from each other, so they'd really feel like enemies. To get the feelings he wanted, he sometimes made them practice in bad weather. The Jets had to dance on their knees so many times in one scene that some of them hurt their joints and got big bruises. The lights on set were so hot that dancers would run outside to cool off, but the sudden changes in temperature would make them sick. Rita tore the cartilage in her knee while shooting and had to have surgery. The attack scene, in which Anita is almost hit by the Jets, was one of the hardest scenes for Rita to shoot. Rita felt like this scene hit close to home because she had been raped when she was 17. She started crying during practice and couldn't stop. It took all day to film the scene, and it was mentally and physically draining. Even though Rita was in pain, she put on a powerful show. She later said she saw her ex-boyfriend Marlon Brando in her mind. This helped her say the line, "Don't touch me," with so much anger and passion during the scene. After the movie came out, Rita's performance was hard to forget. She made history when she became the first Latina actor to win an Academy Award at the 1962 award show. "I can't believe it," was all she said when her name was called. It was one of the shortest comments ever. "Oh Lord, that's all I have to say." She won, but her career didn't take off right away. Because she kept getting parts that were too easy for her, she didn't make another movie for 7 years. The Side Story of West was a huge hit and won 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. Rita got more out of her part as Anita than just a win. That was a win for everyone. She fought for respect, did her best, and made history. For West Side Story, Rita Moreno won an Oscar in 1962. That should have made everything different. Things didn't get better, though. They got worse. She wasn't in any movies at all for almost 7 years. The parts she was given were bad. They always fit certain molds. She was asked to play the girlfriends of gang members or beautiful island girls. These people didn't have any depth. A lot of them were portrayed badly on screen. It made Moreno angry. "This was the worst breakup of my life," she said. Though she didn't want these parts, her career was over because of it. For 2,555 days, there was no rain. It hurt to see the irony. She won the Oscar for her role as Anita, a strong and proud Latina woman. But the part didn't seem to open doors for her. Instead, it seemed to close them. She kept getting jobs in Hollywood that made her feel small. It showed how unfair and closed-minded the business was, even for someone at the top. Things didn't get better after that. From 1962 to 1970, she had 37 job offers, but they were all for the same kinds of roles. Hot Mexican spitfires or women who were too made up. One time she tried out, she was asked to play a Mexican whorehouse boss. She told them no and left. It wasn't just the parts. They also wanted her to look that way. Makeup artists often asked her to make her face darker. All of the Hispanic actors in West Side Story wore the same dark color of makeup. People called Moreno racist when she said that Puerto Ricans have a lot of different skin tones. It made me feel bad. During this time, Moreno was only in 6 movies. In the last 10 years, she had been in 16 movies. Even though it hurt her career, she wouldn't play low-class parts. Her stand made it possible for other Latina actors to follow. She showed that it's better to fight stereotypes than to give up on them. It was hard for her in her personal life, too. Moreno was in a bad relationship with Marlon Brando for a long time. They met when she was 22 years old, in 1954. They were together on and off for 8 years. Brando was called the love of my life by Moreno. But he also caused a lot of pain. He cheated on her all the time. Moreno told him that she always wanted to make him happy, even though their relationship was bad. In 1962, the worst thing happened. There was a baby born to Brando and Moreno. At the time, he was married, and he pushed her to have an abortion. The abortion was not done right, and it hurt her both physically and mentally. Soon after, Moreno tried to kill herself. At Brando's house, she took too many sleeping pills. His helper found her and took her to the hospital right away. Afterward, she said, "I went to bed to die. Not to get back at them, but to get away from the pain." Everything changed at this dark moment. She was pushed by Brando to see a therapist. She began therapy, which went on for 8 years. It helped her get better. She started to get her confidence and sense of who she was back. Moreno slowly changed things in her life. She learned to be strong and tough during this hard time. Rita Moreno's career took a big turn for the better in the 1970s, when she got a part on the Electric Company. From 1971 to 1977, this kids' TV show had 780 episodes, and Rita was in all of them. With her funny shows, she made kids laugh and learn. People loved how she said, "Hey, you guys," out loud and happy at the beginning of every show. It became famous and stuck in everyone's mind. Rita had a role as Millie the Helper, a funny and charming figure who taught kids grammar and reading. In 1977, she won an Emmy for her great work. It was her first big award in over 10 years, and it showed that she could still shine. People really liked the show, so it stayed on for years and even got reruns so that new kids could watch it. She went back to Broadway in 1975 with the Ritz. She played a Puerto Rican singer named Gucci Gomez in a funny play. Because she had done something similar at parties as a joke, this part was made just for her. She won a Tony Award because people loved her so much. Because the play was so popular, it was turned into a movie in 1976, and Rita got to play the same part again. She was even nominated for a Golden Globe for her role in the movie, which shows how much people liked her. Rita and her co-stars on the Electric Company made an album with songs and skits from the show while they were on the show. It was a big hit, and they won a Grammy for it in 1972. Rita took the first step towards something great when she won all 4 big awards: the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. This is known as EGOT. This has only been done by a few people in history, and she was on her way. At that time, not many Puerto Rican artists had won Grammys, so this was a big deal for her and for Latinx artists in general. It was a big deal for Rita when she won her EGOT in 1977, this time for her guest performance on The Muppet Show. Animal, the crazy drummer, and she did a funny and fiery version of Fever. One of the most loved parts of the show was when they talked back and forth. It was so funny and entertaining. Rita became the first Latina to win the EGOT with this win, which was a big deal. At that time, she was the fastest person to ever do it, taking only 16 years. The fact that Rita was so successful showed how talented and versatile she was and opened doors for other Latinx artists. As Rita's work went on, she got a serious part in the HBO show Oz. She played Sister Peter Marie, a nun who worked as a jail psychologist from 1997 to 2003. She hadn't done anything like this before. Her character was kind and thoughtful, and she had to deal with big issues like faith and feelings in a tough jail setting. At age 65, Rita proved that she could play parts that were deep and emotional. She did a great job, and many people thought she was one of the best parts of the show. It was hard for Rita Moreno and Leonard Gordon to stay married for a long time. After going on a blind date the year before, they got married on June 18, 1965. They were married for 45 years, until Gordon died on June 30, 2010. He was born in New York in 1920. He first worked as an internist and cardiologist, but later he became Rita's boss. Their marriage looked happy at first glance, but Rita later told them it wasn't even close. She said Gordon had a lot of power over her, and she might have left him if their daughter Fernanda wasn't there. Rita said that they had an unwritten agreement about how they would be together. She played a little girl to make him happy, and he took care of everything. Over time, she didn't like this relationship, which made things tense between them. Rita said Gordon had good features too, even though he had problems. He was funny all the time, and a wonderful grandfather. Rita said she felt free for the first time after he died at age 90. Since then, she's joked that she'd rather eat glass than get married again. Rita had a girl named Fernanda on October 28, 1966. It wasn't easy for her to balance being a mom and her busy Hollywood job. By the time she was 35 and a mother, she had already won an Oscar. Rita wanted Fernanda to have a better life than she did as a child, when she lived in Puerto Rico and New York and was poor. That's how Fernanda became a jewelry designer. She told her to value school and follow her dreams. Rita had to be away from home for long amounts of time because of her job. This was very true when she worked for the power company from 1971 to 1977. She counted on Gordon to help her raise Fernanda. It was hard at times, but Rita and Fernanda became very close. It was important to Fernanda's mother that she cared for her family and did her job well. Rita practiced lines at home, which gave her an early taste of what it was like to be an actress. Rita loved having Fernanda around as she grew up. She threw her mother a surprise party for her 91st birthday in 2019, which showed how close they were. Rita Moreno went back to West Side Story in 2021, 60 years after the first movie, when she played Anita. In this case, Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner gave her a brand new part. Valentina was the kind Puerto Rican widow who ran the store where Tony worked, and she played Valentina. Doc, the first character, was replaced by Valentina and helped bring the Jets and the Sharks together, even though they were rivals. Rita, who was 89 years old when the movie was shot, brought her many years of experience to the part. She even sang the song Somewhere, which made it mean something different and more dramatic. It stopped being a love song and turned into a sad song about the hate and violence she had seen in her life. It was great to work with Rita. The young actors especially liked her, who saw her as an amazing star. Her part gave the movie more depth and showed how things had changed and stayed the same since the story was first told. Rita felt very sad when she went back to West Side Story after a long time. She went to the New York opening of the new movie on December 12, 2021, exactly 60 years and one day after the premiere of the first movie. It was too much for her, and she cried during the showing. Seeing the movies made her remember so many things that she sometimes felt like she was back in the original production. Rita felt very strongly when she saw Ariana DeBose, who was playing Anita, perform America. That night, she found herself singing along word for word. She had to go back to her room after one scene and cry for almost an hour, wiped out by the rush of feelings. There was more to it than playing. It gave her a chance to think about her life and how the story has affected other cultures. Rita also became very close with Ariana DeBose. Ariana felt less alone when Rita said to her, "You must be terrified," on the first day of practice. Rita shared tips and stories from when she played Anita in the first movie while they were shooting. She helped Ariana understand how Anita was both strong and weak, and she gave her advice on how to keep her energy up during tough dance scenes. Rita even had Ariana over to her house, where they talked about what West Side Story means to Puerto Ricans. They sang America Together on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert right before the movie came out. Their relationship was more than just business. Two generations helping each other out was a beautiful sight. Facing old pain was one of the hardest parts of going back to West Side Story. Rita's character, Anita, was attacked by the Jets in a dramatic scene in the 1961 movie. Rita was very upset while filming it because she had been sexually assaulted in real life. The 2021 version has Rita's character, Valentina, stop the new Anita from being attacked in the same way. Rita was very upset while filming this scene. She then broke down in her trailer and cried for 45 minutes. For her, it brought back painful memories from the first movie and her own life. She later said that accepting it, even though it was hard, helped her get better. Their part in the 2021 West Side Story went a lot further than acting. She worked as a consultant and senior producer as well. Spielberg believed she could make the project seem real. She demanded that all Latino actors play the parts, which was different from the 1961 version where many Puerto Rican roles were played by white actors in brownface. She worked closely with the designers to make sure that the 1950s style was shown in the clothes and sets. She told the actors personal stories about her life to help them understand what it was like to be Puerto Rican in New York at that time. She also worked hard to get the word out about the movie by doing interviews and going to press events. Rita has always pushed for Latinos to have more roles in Hollywood. In the 1950s, she had to deal with constant discrimination and was cast in parts that were too similar to her. She couldn't find important parts, even after winning an Oscar in 1961 for her role as Anita in West Side Story. She sent a strong message about the need for change by refusing to play any low roles for 7 years. During her work, Rita has spoken out against Hollywood's use of brownface, the fact that Latino actors don't have many chances, and the way that the business treats all Latino cultures the same. Younger Latino performers looked up to her and were inspired by her. Lin-Manuel Miranda has called her a big influence. She was also an executive producer on the 2021 version of West Side Story. She made sure that the new version was more true to Puerto Rican culture, which shows that her work can really make a difference. She was given a Kennedy Center honor in 2015 for her contributions to American culture. The award was for her work to make the entertainment business more diverse. She has also spoken out against racism and sexism in Hollywood. In the beginning of her career, she was treated like an object and was often cast in parts that were more about her race than their talent. In 1954, she was featured in Life magazine in pictures that were meant to be offensive. They got her attention, but also reinforced harmful stereotypes. Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia Pictures, is one of the powerful men she has said sexually harassed her. Rita was also told to change the color of her skin for parts and speak with fake accents, even if it didn't fit the part. There was discrimination against her, and she wrote about it in her 2013 autobiography. Rita took part in the 1963 March on Washington, D.C., where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. This showed how much she cared about civil rights. Later, she spoke out during the #MeToo movement, talking about being harassed and telling other women to do the same. Her work on TV shows like One Day at a Time showed that Latino families could be presented in a real way and still do well on TV. Rita was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President George W. Bush on June 23, 2004. People who have done great things for the country are given this award, which is the greatest civilian honor in the U.S. At that time, Rita was one of only 8 live performers to have won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. As a leader for Latino artists, President Bush praised her. To honor her rise from a young immigrant from Puerto Rico to an American hero. Not only Rita, but also the Latino community in the U.S. felt very proud when she won the award. Rita used her fame to push for more diversity and participation in the arts and in schools.